Okay, so now that the starter is wired, it's finally time to put on the intake manifold. So I'm gonna clean this up a little bit with a wire brush just to double check that it's all clean, brake clean it, and then gonna put it on with the gasket, obviously. And then we can get our throttle body, start to hook that up. So before I put on this intake, I did block off this little piece here that we are no longer using. And then I think I'm gonna have to block off this one later, not quite sure yet. All right, so I got the manifold on and I got the pressure sensor hooked up here. And so that's good. Next, the throttle body is going to be going on. Okay, so now I'm missing a bolt here because I don't have a nut small enough for this. But I got the throttle position sensor in and plugged in. I did have to drill out this bracket a little bit to fit the stock Insight throttle cable in here, but it is long enough, so that's good. Yeah, gonna mount the throttle cable and then we're done for the throttle body for now. All right, so now the throttle cable is installed. I did have to rotate the actual part that spins here to get it to, because this was kind of sticking up real high. But so that's adjusted. I gotta figure out a way to mount this down, but throttle cable's good. That's it for the throttle body. All right, so since I'm gonna be having them tune out the IAC, obviously I'm not gonna plug that in. And then also down here, you can see this kind of opens up. There's two holes here. One goes into the intake, one is outside. I'm gonna plug up one of these. I found that this clutch bolt worked. So I'm gonna put some silicone on this and put this here so that there's no vacuum leaks. So it doesn't really look pretty, but you shouldn't be able to see it all that well once everything else is in. And it'll work, so that's cool. So looking at the rest of this engine harness, we have a couple things that are not plugged in quite yet. We have this ECT, IAC, which I said we're not going to use, an auxiliary, which is also not going to be used because I don't really need to run anything else, and then an IAT. This IAT is going to be plugged into the sensor that's on the cold air intake that's not quite yet installed, and this ECT. So after a little bit of research, this ECT should be on the radiator somewhere when I get that installed, which I think is going to be the next thing that I install here. That, or I think I might do the intake tube. Yeah, I think I'm going to do the intake tube. All right, so the intake's now mounted. Something I did notice is it is having a little bit of trouble clearing the hood. This engine is very tight in the Insight's engine bay. So when I shut it, it kind of moves down a little bit, but I think that's okay where I have it. I even tried to cut it an inch, like right here, and that also didn't seem to work. So I'm just gonna have it, you know, kind of pressing on, and hopefully it doesn't keep the hood up. But I also got the IAT sensor attached. So there's two lines here. Not sure what this one is. I need to look for that. But this one obviously just goes right here. I think this one goes to this piece right here. It's kind of hard to see because it's nighttime, but there's a little tube right there. So I think that just connects there. But yeah, so a little trouble fitting that, but otherwise it's looking good. The engine isn't going to move that much because I did get a lot stiffer motor mounts. They are 80A or something, I forget. They're not quite full steel, but they're really, really hard bushings in there. So this motor's not going to really move all that much when you hit the throttle. So, but yeah, that's that. Now I'm going to move on to the radiator and the lower radiator hose. So for a radiator, I'm using a Civic, like 90s, late 90s, early 2000s Civics half radiator. It's a 2-row here as well, so it's a little better performance-wise. And I'm just going to end up probably cutting out the one bracket here on the other side that the old radiator was sitting in, and just throwing the new one in. Or I might use the stock little rubber pieces here. I think I still have them on the old radiator, and just drill these holes out. So we'll see. I gotta mount up this stuff up here, like the upper rod support, so that I can see where everything's gonna mount up at, how it's all gonna work. All right, so I took the stock radiator rubber mounts and I just modified them a little bit, cut this piece off on the bottom, and now I'm just gonna mark my holes here. And well, I gotta once again refit it, but yeah, I'm gonna put that piece back on to see where I'm at. And I think that should be it. So before I fit this, I am gonna remount the hood latch. Just, you know, it might not be perfect, it might need to be adjusted, but just remount that so I can see where that's at as well. Okay, so there is quite a bit of clearance issues with this. So firstly, I'm just gonna show you guys here kind of where I had it set. It's similar to where it's at factory. Obviously, as you can see, the actual hood latch lever is in the way. However, I think I could maybe bend this, or, you know, weld it or something, like cut it and weld it somewhere else, extend it maybe to fix that. This would have to be cut to clear the cap. This is going to be pretty close for the for this upper radiator hose between here and this sensor, but I think that'll work. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to drill the other hole for this side, and then I'm going to start fabricating here and try to see if I can make this work. If not, I might just do away with that. Maybe just the top portion and make a custom top portion, custom shitty. But yeah, so I'm gonna drill the holes first and see where I end up at. So I was still having hood clearance issues, so what I'm gonna try to do is I cut these down even more. So there's still a little bit of rubber, but it's very, very small now. And then also over here, I have cut out, I took out a body mount that was right here in those two square holes. I took out this piece, I just cut it, as you can see. You know, it looked like that. And then I also cut out some right here. So here and here for these things on the radiator. So that's as low as it can sit right now. Still having hood clearance issues. Looking like that is gonna fit fine though. And then I think what I'm gonna end up doing is just cutting some out of the bulge right here in the center of the frame. Or yeah, in the center of the frame to help this radiator clear. So hopefully that works. If not, oh well. And I'll have to maybe try a different radiator or go a different route. Okay, so I also cut these here to clearance for these things. So that's gonna make this a little bit weaker, but it now fits correctly. So next, I'm just gonna use this stock piece here. I'm gonna drill probably a hole like right there and through both and just mount it like that. Even though that's gonna make the hose clamp hard to get to. Might go a little more sideways, something like that. But yeah. Okay, so here's what I got. I drilled a little hole right here. That's gonna bolt into the stock location here. And then this radiator hose is gonna be pressed up against the sensor a little bit. Probably pinched about halfway, honestly. That should be okay though. Next, I'm gonna have to figure out the hood latch location, relocation I should say. But other than that, the radiator is mostly mounted. All right, so now I'm under the car. I was getting this bolt right here, but you can see the radiator hose. It is quite a bit pinched, but good, good enough. This has enough room here to put this body mount that was over here back in. I don't know, what else do we have going on? Looks like the radiator fan is going to fit just fine. However, the original harness connector is all the way over there, so that will probably have to be extended. But it looks like the original radiator fan, which is right here, will be fine right there. I just got to find a way to actually get it on now, whether that's bolting it or what. But yeah, it looks good so far. So I'm a little bit stupid. That's the original AC condenser fan. This is the original radiator fan. So I think this is still going to be a good size to use, and it's still going to fit, it looks like. Once again, I'll just have to extend this connector right here. But yeah, it looks good. And I have a reservoir here that I can bolt back in for the overflow, so that's cool. Okay, so I did try to fit the stock radiator fan, and it did not fit. So what I'm going to end up doing is buying a standalone radiator fan that'll fit on here. And then I saved the Insight connector, the original one. I just need to make sure the new fan only has 2 wires here. But yeah, so that's that. All right, so sorry for the sidetrack, but next I'm going to be looking at this hood latch here. I took off the little plastic cover, and so as you can see, it's kind of in the way. It's just ever so slightly too low. So I think I'm just going to try to actually just bend this and see if that'll work. All right, so fast forward quite a bit. I reran the cable for the hood latch here, and I also bent up the hood latch, or the hood release. So now this works. I just press it like this on the tip here, and that clears the radiator just fine, and it allows the hood to close. Pretty decent. So I'm still gonna have to cut the hood to actually get it to close all the way. Maybe cut like some of these pieces off here or here for the intake or whatever, but just little sections here and there. But for what I have so far, it's good. It's done, other than the radiator fan and cutting the hood. Oh, another thing, I just added this sticker tonight. All right, so I got the hood to close flush here. All I had to do was trim out some areas for this and for this cap. As you can see, that's a pretty big area, and I had to cut off this part too in here. But now the hood shuts flush with just barely enough room. But yeah, so everything's good here. So here, this is a lower radiator hose from an Acura TSX. With the case here, with the K24, like early 2000s. And this actually looks like it's gonna work relatively well for this lower radiator hose. So if I try to hold this, let's say that's there, right? It's pretty close. This is also in the right general direction here. It just needs to be a little bit modified, maybe pushed up a bit, but it looks pretty okay. So I'm gonna try to make this fit, and I'll show you guys afterwards. Okay, so this worked way better than it needed to, so obviously that's there. Doesn't even really look like it's pinched at all, and it just came right here. Perfect. Awesome. So yeah, that's a early 2000s TSX, the K24 radiator hose. Okay, so I just cut this bar off that originally held the battery right here, and cleaned that up, made it nice and smooth. And the reason I remounted this strut bar instead of just keeping it off for the weight reduction is for the chassis rigidity. And then also so I can get remounting these sort of things. Got one here, got one here. And yeah, so just get that in place. And then also I'm gonna see, it's gonna be odd because it's above, but I'm gonna see if I can put the radiator overflow tank, reservoir, whatever, on this bar here where these 10s are. There's plenty of different spots to screw them in at. Okay, so now I'm out here trying to figure out some of these wires, or sorry, some of these tubes and stuff. So, this right here, I put a really thick bolt in, and just blocked it off. This would recirculate coolant into a drive-by-wire throttle body. I don't have that. I have a cable. So that's what that would do. Here, this guy that comes around and goes in, this would normally attach right here. And this is to help with cold starts when it's really cold out. So basically, this just allows air to pass from the intake directly into the runners here, or into the head. I'm not sure exactly where. I guess into the runners. But this can be blocked off if you just put a little rubber piece here. And then this ECT that I couldn't figure out, you can buy an adapter that goes in there where it's currently bolted in, and then put your sensor right here, because this is controlled by a coolant temperature. So yeah, so that's a valve that's not needed if you're doing a K-swap. Yeah, so that's two things here. Obviously the brake booster, that needs vacuum, so I think I'm gonna run the brake booster. I'm gonna get rid of this whole line over here. I think I'm just gonna run that from here, like from this little connector, straight over to here onto the intake. And then this thing back here with the wires on it, with this other rusty bracket that comes up. This thing back here is the original map sensor. So I think I can get rid of that as well and just plug this little T-fitting here. Shit, I might as well just run a new line straight from the brake booster and get rid of all this. But I'm gonna call or ask the K-swap group to see if I need that. I don't think I do, but yeah, so I'm gonna call them and ask about that. And then here I was looking, we have this line right here. This runs all the way down to the evap canister by the fuel tank. So I think that just needs vacuum, in which case I think I'm gonna run that around and to this spot that I left open on the intake here. So yeah, that's that. And then this, I'm just gonna put a breather on because that's just a valve cover breather. So I'm just gonna buy a breather for that. But yeah, I'm starting to figure it out. I'm gonna clean up a lot of this tubing here. And then also once that's kind of in place, I'm gonna wire tie some things down here, kind of clean up, put this cover on. But anyway, so for this video, let's continue with the radiator. I'm about to order a 12-inch slim fit radiator fan off Amazon. And then, so that'll be mounted tomorrow or whenever I get it. And I can't remember what else, but, oh, that's what it was. I gotta figure out somewhere to mount this reservoir here. So I'm gonna figure that out also tomorrow here. I'm gonna get that reservoir mounted. Okay everyone, I did some cleanup here. So I have this line going from the brake booster to this piece in the manifold where that old piece was. I have this line going from the evap up to here on the intake. This is gonna get capped. This is going to get a breather. I'll put that on in a minute. And then I made a third line here, going from this fuel line right here over to here. Now, I'm not sure. This is a returnless engine, and the Insight, at least the manual, uses a return style system. So I still have to, when I go to first start the car, see which of these is going to provide fuel. But this will just get hooked up to whatever one does. And then I also plugged, I think I showed you this guy right here that I plugged. But there's also one right here that I also plugged that I forgot about. So did that. I also kind of tucked this original harness for the headlights up back where it's supposed to be, around where it's supposed to be, not exactly. But yeah, so now I'm gonna make a bracket. I found this piece of metal on the side of the house, so I'm gonna use this and make a bracket for the reservoir. Okay, so I bent up some steel for the reservoir, and I just welded this on. These are absolutely horrible welds. Don't mind me. Yeah. Still need to learn a lot more about welding, but this will work, and I'll show you guys how I'm gonna mount it. I did leave this little end unwelded. That way it's still in here pretty tight. Like, I can't push it off with my hand, or at least with one hand. It's a little bit tough, but that way I can easily still remove this in the future if I need to. If I need to take out the reservoir without the bracket. So here's where it sits in the engine bay. I use this bolt right here, kind of behind the light, and then this frame down here actually holds it from falling down. So, and because that's kind of tight in there, it's not going to bounce up and out. So yeah, this is not super clean, but it's kind of out of the way. So that's good. That's done. With that being said, other than putting that bar in and deleting the old MAF sensor, which was right here, that's all I did for today, other than the hoses and stuff. So yeah, I'll catch you guys another day. So here's the part spread for today. My universal radiator fan came with all the stuff to mount it. My adapter for the coolant passage came for that sensor. I have yet to receive my sensor. That's coming, should be here in a couple days. And I have my breather for my valve cover. So let's get the breather on real quick. All right, so that's on, looking good. For this coolant sensor, it did work. It threaded into the hole right there. This one was just off Amazon for K-swaps. Came with the wrong sensor for my wiring harness. This is way too big around. So I'm just gonna keep that around because I'm pretty sure that's universal. So this is gonna just stay out for now. Let's get this fan on. You wanna put some foam, which is what these little things are, between the corners here where it actually sits on the radiator. And then I'll figure out the rest of this stuff. Okay, so I'm looking at this, and I do have this fan connector here, so I think I might... I couldn't really find the male connector for this, so I think I'm just going to snip it here and strip it. Snip it like up here and strip it, and then just solder on the wires for the fan over there. But I could use this piece that I made up here with this OEM Insight connector and these wires, but I feel like the new fan is going to be controlled by the ECU, right? So I should probably use the new wiring harness rather than the old one. Not 100%. Okay, so from what I understand, I have these little plastic pieces on here. I put these sticky pads that are foam on the back, threw some sticky pads on these bad boys on this side, and now I'm about to throw this in. I consulted with the K-Swap Insight group on Facebook. They said the stock harness will give me better luck with actually getting this to work rather than the K-Swap harness, so that's what I'm gonna do. But yeah, so let's get to it. I'm gonna get this mounted first, and then I'll do the wiring. Okay, so now I have my radiator fan installed. I ended up cutting off all of that wire and just soldering it here and heat shrinking it because this was plenty long. And then I also got this close enough to the radiator here where it's not gonna really push down. That's gonna take off some of the weight of the fan, because the fan, this radiator goes down, not across. So I didn't want to put a ton of pressure on these fins and take out a bunch of them. So yeah, radiator fan's done. And that'll be the end of this video. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.